How's it going, Sports Wars? This is Roy coming at you with another episode of the Sports Wars podcast. This week, I am joined by a couple of new faces y'all haven't seen in a while, but definitely familiar faces. I'm joined by Mr. Aaron, the King of Chicago, and my brother, everybody familiar face, but haven't seen him in a while. My brother John. How y'all doing this evening? Shit.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Appreciate y'all having me on. I ain't been on in a while, so of course I gotta represent, even though one of those disappointed, but we're not gonna talk about that right now.
Sadly, unfortunately, due to Mr. King of Chicago's request, we're going to have to discuss it a little bit later.
Yeah.
So we can we'll be able to get everything taken care of. How you doing this evening, Aaron? I'm sure you're doing pretty well with your team as the King of the North right now.
I'm glad you asked. This is how I'm doing.
Oh boy, I had to play Game of Thrones. Then you'll get us some copyright shit. Oh no, you didn't play enough of it. All right, we're all right.
King in the North for the time being.
Still, we'll see come Sunday. That's make or break time right there.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, no man, it's glad to be here. Glad to be back with you guys.
You know what? I actually want to give a special shout out to Aaron, who called this shit back in July. We have our for anybody not in our group, we have our unpopular opinion posts where it's hot take central, and Aaron posted his prediction that the Bears were going to take the division this year, and we're 9 weeks, 8 weeks in, 9 weeks in, and Bears are looking solid. So with the proper respect given, we're going to jump right into this week's big news. And I know we started last week with some player movement. We're going to start this week with the same thing, but a different sport. The big news this weekend since the last podcast aired, was the trade of Jimmy Butler to the Philadelphia 76ers from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Philadelphia 76ers received Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton, and the T-Wolves received Robert Covington, Dario Saric, and a 2022 second-round pick. Before I go into any of the details about what other teams had put on the table for them, what are y'all's immediate thoughts? What does this do for Philly? What does this do for Minnesota? Aaron.
Well, my immediate thoughts is Philly won that trade. I mean, would anybody disagree with that?
I mean, yeah. No. I mean, Philly.
Right now, and you're in a team that's got a win now mindset. Like, we can make this push. I mean, what's Minnesota going to do?
I mean, Minnesota was I think they were just looking to get Jimmy Butler the fuck out of there before he got any worse, because apparently Jimmy was wild this year. I know Jimmy's your boy from his Chicago days, but Jimmy Buckets was pretty crazy this year.
Do you really fault the man for wanting to win, though? I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
I mean, it ain't even wanting to win. It's like, I mean, Melo wants to win, but it's a matter of how you go about doing it, and like.
Hey, sometimes you got to get people's asses.
Yeah, look at Le'Veon Bell. I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get where you want to be.
Yeah, and now he's got that Connor kid a starting job.
Well, some of the other offers that were on the table for Minnesota, the Rockets were everybody knew the Rockets were kind of in on it. They were offering Eric Gordon and Nene and 2 first-round picks. The Pelicans apparently were also in on it, trying to pair Jimmy Butler with Anthony Davis, try to keep Anthony Davis in-house, because the rumor is he's leaving. They offered Nikolai Mirotic. I believe they got him from – didn't they get him from the Bulls, Aaron? A lot of Bulls being moved around here.
Yeah.
But what was holding up that deal was the Pelicans would not include Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday, they didn't want to part with him, and apparently Minnesota wanted him really bad. The Washington Wizards were also involved, but they balked at any deal that included Bradley Beal. So there was a bunch of teams in play. Rumor was the Miami Heat were also in play, but they just apparently Minnesota made an offer to them, and Miami never called back, and they went ahead and got this deal done. Is Philly the favorite now over Boston?
It's pretty early to tell, man, at this point. I mean, all of us, we kind of agree we don't really like talking about, this type of shit before the All-Star break. So, but we were talking about it earlier, man. Boston's kind of like up and down right now, and people are doubting them where they're at so far in their season, but it's just one of those things, like, it's too early. I just think in the end, in the long run, Boston's going to play better defense, which could take them over the edge. But as far as Philly with Butler, like, this kind of solidifies their place that they already had anyway. I mean, we knew it was going to be who? Philly, Boston, Toronto, and maybe Milwaukee.
Yeah,
maybe kind of like the big four out of the East that are making that push. Yeah.
I think another benefit that nobody's talking about is that they made this trade in November. So if they do stumble a little bit, there's still plenty of time for them to recover. If they wait till February to do this, the stumbling takes place right as you're trying to get spots. You're trying to get your seating. John, what's your thoughts on what this does for Philly?
Well, as far as like Boston edging out Philly, I think the key to Boston is staying healthy. I mean, I think if Boston can stay healthy, I think they're going to be. They're going to be better than Philly.
We all know Danny Ainge is not hesitant to make a move if he feels like it needs some shaking up. He won't hesitate. Another kind of closing out the Jimmy Butler talk. Another player that is rumored to be on the move, but nothing official has happened yet. The GM of his team has actually come out and said he's kind of refuting the reports here that Carmelo Anthony has played his last games for the Rockets. What are y'all's thoughts on Melo? I know sometimes I can't tell if Aaron's bullshitting or not, but I think Aaron's a big fan of Melo. What are your thoughts there?
No, I am. It's just like, man, we talk about him so much, like.
I mean, he's been –
everybody, it's such a 50-50 split on what people feel about him, whether it's, him personally or him as a player. Like, and some people have said he's the most overrated player of all time. Like, that's clearly not true. Like, the dude's been a talented player for more than he hasn't been in his entire career.
I think what really hurts Melo, though,
like it never falls into place.
I mean, what really hurts Melo is that draft class, man. Look at the guys that came out of that. LeBron, D. Wade, Bosh. He's always going to be compared to those guys, and those guys all have multiple titles. So, I mean, I think go ahead, John, my bad.
I was just going to say I'm on that overrated spectrum. I think he is overrated.
See, we're already split. I mean, we got Aaron. Aaron thinks it's crazy.
This dude like a multiple Olympic gold medalist.
I mean,
who was on that team, though?
I mean, honestly, though, if you put one of us on that team, we'd be gold medalists too, though.
Yeah.
But my thoughts on Melo, I think the best comparison, and we talked about it a little bit in our own chat. The best comparison to Melo, I think, is Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was a generational guy. He could score with the best of them. But those last, what'd you say, 5, 6 years of his career, he was seriously in denial about where his talent was and what he deserved as the role on a team. Crazy enough, Melo and Iverson were teammates in Denver for a couple of years, and they made some noise until Iverson was traded to Detroit, and they brought in Billups in Denver, and they almost went to the finals. That was a tough Western Conference final that year with Denver and LA. Where's Melo's legacy, man? Is he? I mean, we know he can score, but we've watched.
He's not a Hall of Famer.
You don't think he's a Hall of Famer?
Nah.
Come on, man.
I got to disagree with you, man. I do think he's a Hall of Famer. If you can score, you're going in.
No.
If Tracy McGrady is in, Carmelo's in.
What has he done besides the Olympic shit?
What has Tracy McGrady done? Tracy McGrady doesn't even have gold medalists. Doesn't even have gold medals. Tracy McGrady just got in this year.
Do you not think that Melo could be on a team that has a solid starting five lineup and be a six man and come off the bench and be sustainable for a team?
I think he could, but the question is, does Melo?
I know
do that, but Melo won't do that. Melo is his ego's too big to come off the bench.
And that's where I'll agree with both of you guys. Like, I'm not blind, like, just showing the guy crazy love, but like, I feel like if he could get his mind right and just face facts and really, kind of buckle down and say, this is what I want to do for the rest of the time that I'm actually healthy and able to play, like just be a solid member of a team, give some guidance to younger guys, and go out there when I'm needed for those minutes on the court. Like he could still benefit a team somewhere.
Oh no, and I actually 100% agree. If he could accept his role as a six man, just kind of leading that second unit off the bench, I think he could average 14, 15 points a game in kind of limited minutes, save his health. And he's a guy who – Carmelo's a fucking assassin. He has no problem taking that last shot. So he is absolutely a guy you could put in there.
Miss it.
Huh?
Even though he'll probably miss it.
I mean, if he could accept his role like, say, Ray Allen did when he went to Miami – Ray Allen didn't start in Miami. Ray Allen played like 12, 15 minutes a game, came in, knocked down some big shots when he was needed, played a little defense. I know that's not Melo's thing, is playing defense, but get hot. If Melo comes in and he's hot, man, shit. I just think if Melo could accept that as his role, then he could definitely do big things. I think some of these teams like OKC last year, they wanted him to come in and be a starter, and that's just not what Melo is at this point in his career. But it is.
So long story short, you're saying he needs to know his role and shut his mouth?
Pretty much. All right, with that, we're gonna close with the quoting the great one, the People's Champ. We're gonna move on to last week's games, just kind of a quick review of each one of the big games this past weekend. I know last week. During last week's show, we didn't think there was going to be that many good games, and I think some of them we were kind of proven wrong. We did. I think we're touching on some of the games that we did mention last week. I know Pat's Titans was one of them. That's the first one we're going to touch on today. Belichick is now 0 for 2 this season against his quote-unquote disciples, Mike Vrabel and Matt Patricia. What does this mean long-term? With the Pats losing to the Titans, I know it was on the road. They're not likely to play on at Tennessee in the playoffs. But what does this mean? Does it mean jack shit, or does this is where there's smoke, there's fire? What do y'all think?
And I'm not the one to ride the Brady penis, but this doesn't mean anything. They got 3 losses?
Yeah.
I mean, Gronk is really the only one that's had health issues. All the other team is healthy.
Speaking of Gronk, I actually just saw a kind of a rumors today that due to injuries, Gronk is strongly considering retirement in the offseason.
I don't care what he does in the offseason. I need him to come back for my fantasy team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I have him in both my leagues. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any concern there. They're going to. I think LaRock said they have a bye week next week. So
yeah, I think they are running up on their bye week actually. Let me double check just to be sure.
I think that losing this game to Tennessee, I'm not sure how much, none of us really pay that much attention to New England, but I think this loss kind of shakes up their first round playoff bye just a little bit. So we'll see, in the coming up games and everything. But like John said, now they get a bye week, another week for Gronk to rest, for the team to kind of like recoup. It's hard for me to say anything negative play-wise about the Patriots until they show us otherwise, We saw this last year with the very opening game of the season against Kansas City, when they got beat and everybody is like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Patriots going to start this downward trend. And then next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl again. So,
to correct what I said earlier, I actually misspoke. The Patriots are 1-2 against Belichick's disciples. They actually played the Texans week 1, and Bill O'Brien is one of his former assistants as well. But they only beat them by a touchdown. So, sorry, we'll go ahead. What you're saying, Aaron?
It's just, no, that was it. Besides, this in recent memory, this is not even anywhere close to the best Patriots team we've seen, on offense with the players that they've got. So as long as you got Brady healthy, his mentality and his mindset and his football IQ, he's out there and he's going to make plays and get the job done. And you got Bill Belichick on the sideline still. So it's just one of those things to me where it's like it's the AFC is still theirs until further notice. It's still their division to give away, or their Super Bowl to win or lose until we know otherwise.
Well, I think obviously besides the Pats losing big by 24 points, my favorite part of this was the Dion Lewis interview afterwards. When they asked him if it was personal, he said, "Hell yeah, it's personal." And he said, "That's what happens when you go cheap. You get your ass kicked," referring to the Patriots not wanting to pay him the money after he blew two. I think he blew either one knee twice or each knee, and it worked in rehab and came back. So it was a little personal. They had a couple former Patriots on the team there, including the Super Bowl. Former Super Bowl MVP, former Super Bowl milk carton player missing in action, Malcolm Butler. He was on the team as well. And, I mean, he didn't have a great game, but he didn't have a terrible game. Dion Lewis actually didn't do shit in the game.
I was going to say, man, me, I'm all for that kind of stuff, that kind of attitude and talking shit and everything. But, let's not act like, come on, Dion Lewis, you ain't been lighting up the world this season. So
yeah, I mean, you gotta have to produce a little bit before you start talking shit. Looking at you, Jalen Ramsey. So with that one kind of went over that one a little bit. Move on to the next game. Saints and Bengals. Saints kind of started this week with the big news that they were signing Dez Bryant, and then in his first or second practice, blew his knee out and is done for the year. They answered that by, of course, now they've the news today that they've just signed Brandon Marshall, who in 13 years of his NFL playing career has never played in a playoff game. Dez goes down, Saints are headed up, and the Bengals were the Bengals. What are y'all's thoughts on this one, John?
Dez Bryant, are we sure it was a knee? I thought it was an Achilles.
I thought it was an ACL.
Did they say it was a knee?
I
thought they said it was his Achilles, but I may be wrong. Yeah. I mean, as far as the Saints, of course, I don't want them to do anything. So, but they are rolling. I mean,
they might have just signed a curse
with Brandon Marshall. I mean, let's see. I'm trying to pull up the game. I had a different game pulled up. I mean, Drew Brees, obviously, I hate the guy but you got to respect him as a player.
Brandon Marshall's kind of on the same.
But yeah, I mean, the score of this game really surprised me. Go ahead.
I would say Brandon Marshall, in my opinion, is kind of right now a little bit similar to what we were talking with that whole Melo situation. Like, I think Brandon Marshall could be serviceable, in a limited role here and there, but who knows, man.
I don't even think Brandon Marshall gets the overrated title, though. I don't think he's that good. I mean, he has a couple decent games, but he's not. He's
had a couple decent seasons. I don't know if I would call him overrated because I just don't know of that many people that are rating him that high.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't even give him that title.
He's just, he's Brandon Marshall. He is what he is. He's never been the most special guy in the league, and he's not a bum either. So
I mean, he's had a couple solid years, double-digit touchdowns. He had one in Denver, a couple in Chicago. He had his best years, obviously, in Chicago. Statistically, he had one very good year playing for the Jets, his first year there after leaving Chicago. He had actually a career high in touchdowns there, but he's just been kind of a journeyman ever since. So, I mean, I don't really understand the Saints kind of reaching out and grabbing guys like Marshall and Dez because the offense is working. I don't understand
the way they're playing. I don't get it. Yeah, why?
I don't understand why you fuck with it, but
why bring in somebody you have no idea how they are and could potentially be a distraction?
Well, I think
you're 8-1.
I think part of the safe bet though is with a guy like Drew Brees, he's not going to let. He's a strong coach, strong quarterback. They're not going to let some outsider come in and be a distraction. Let's see.
Thanks for rolling, man.
Yeah. Breaking news as we're recording this podcast. The Bills have officially released Nathan Peterman.
Who gives a fuck?
Moving on to the next topic. I know Saints, we touched on Saints Bengals. Saints beat the shit out of them, by the way. The next one that we can bring up was one that was probably more entertaining than Rams fans would have liked. Rams versus Seahawks. The Rams gave, I know Aaron had this stat a little earlier, Rams run defense looked fucking terrible. But how much of that is that the Seahawks run offense is just great. What are y'all's thoughts on the Rams kind of squeaking by the Seahawks? Seems like they've had a couple games like that this year where teams that shouldn't hang with them have been able to hang with them, and then the Rams kind of pull it out at the end.
Shit, I hope they have another one of those games. Yeah, it is, but in a couple of weeks here when they roll through Chicago, man, I hope they have a down week. But that was amazing. And you said what you said about Seahawks run offense, but is the Seahawks run offense really that good? I mean, who's doing most of the running up there?
Brandon he actually brought up an interesting stat last week in that the Saints are the only team in the league. I'm actually just double checking this to verify it. He stated that they are the only team in the league that had more rushing yards than passing yards. Well, that doesn't appear to be.
Does that include Russell Wilson's rushing too?
Yes. I want to say Russell Wilson's got to be their leading.
It's kind of crazy if you do have your quarterback as your leading rusher too, but
he is not. Chris Carson is their leading rusher, but we are halfway through the season and he has 497 yards. Russell Wilson's actually a little further down the list. He's only got 210. But still.
So did they expose something in LA's defense? Did they lay a blueprint for other teams to find a way to beat them?
I mean, the Rams so far this year in their one loss. I mean, they've only had one loss, and that was obviously to the Saints. Let's see. That was the most. I mean, they're not the 273 rushing yards that they gave up was by far the most, and the team that had the second most against them, the Seattle Seahawks. They rushed for 190 against them in week 5.
So you squeak by. You're the I keep wanting to say St. Louis, but you're the Los Angeles Rams. You're talked about as the number 1, number 2, number 3 kind of powerhouse team in the league. You barely squeak by Seattle, who's not great, and I would hesitate to call them pretty good, but you get 273 yards rushed on you on your defense. You lose Cooper Kupp for the season. So what do you do from here?
I mean, they've definitely they're going to have a whole lot of time to think about it because they're going to Kansas City next week. But after the game against Kansas City, they do have a bye. But then they have a very tough, kind of a tough 2 out of 3 games, but then they close it out with a couple of cupcakes. So they have time to figure it out. They have given up, let's see, over 140 rushing yards in only 4 games this year. 2 of those were the Seahawks. One was the Chargers. The other was the Saints. Chargers and Saints are legit playoff teams. The other teams that they held pretty low, Minnesota. They held Minnesota to 54 rushing yards. So, but the more I watch the Rams, the more I'm kind of not sure if this how well this is going to play out. I mean, I'm sure they've got wins against the Chargers. They got wins against the Vikings. They lost against the Saints. Chargers and Vikings are the only playoff teams that they've beaten. So we're gonna this
Chargers and the Vikings.
Yeah, the Chargers and the Vikings are the only 2 playoff teams that the Rams have beaten. Their other wins are the Raiders.
And you're referring to last year?
No, this year. The teams that are set to be playoff teams this year.
Okay.
The other teams that they've beaten,
I got
Raiders, Cardinals, Seahawks twice. Seahawks twice by a combined 7 points. They beat Denver by 3. They blew out San Francisco 39-10. They beat Green Bay by 2, and they lost by 10 to the Saints. So they're pulling out a lot of last-second victories. We're going to see what the hell they are this week, because if that same run defense that showed up against Seattle shows up against Kansas City, Kareem Hunt is going to eat.
Good. So could the Rams? I know I'm kind of jumping. So could the Rams be your pretender versus contender?
It's looking like a pretender right now.
The harder you break it down like that, the harder you dive into these stats, the worse it looks.
Yeah.
So with that, we're gonna close out on that because that's actually one of our community questions we're gonna get to. The next game we're going to talk about is one that's going to break me and John's heart a little bit.
Jesus, let's do this one fucking fast.
The Falcons and the Browns.
Falcons lost. Let's move on.
Well, how about this? I'll cut you off some slack. The Falcons lost. We know that. The Browns. But let's focus on the positives. Julio got another touchdown.
First time that Julio has gotten touchdowns in back-to-back weeks since week 1 and week 2 of 2016.
And then what are the other positives here? You guys got some players coming back off injury next week?
Yep. Deion Jones is set to come back from IR. He can come back as early as this week's game against the Cowboys. But one thing I want to take –
Quinn said playing him.
Quinn said he won't play him until he's 100%. But another big positive, I know watching another team beat the shit out of your team is not fun. But one of my all-time favorite Georgia Bulldogs had an amazing game in that game. Watching Nick Chubb do his thing. He actually broke a Cleveland Browns franchise record for longest run from scrimmage with a 92-yarder. This is the franchise of Jim Brown, and Nick Chubb broke that record. Nick Chubb has been living in the shadows of great running backs since his freshman year of college. Todd Gurley, Herschel Walker. Every Georgia fan knows when there's a hot running back comes in, he is immediately compared to Herschel Walker, and that's an unfair comparison from day one. But I want to give a shout out to Nick Chubb for having the game of his life. Also, Baker had one of my favorite responses to a post-game question. One of the Baker Mayfield was asked, did he feel like during warm-ups whether that this was going to be a big game for him, and he said no, he didn't feel it at all, but he woke up that morning feeling dangerous. So Browns fans, be happy, man. Y'all may have finally found your franchise guy. Let's check back at the end of year 2 to see, but he's definitely got a swagger that Browns fans haven't seen in a while.
The last positive is that y'all still ain't as bad as Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we're still above Tampa, goddammit. And the Panthers lost too, so we didn't lose any ground on them.
Yeah, we're not in the basement.
No. Now the last game of the week that we were going to discuss was Sunday night's game. This is one I actually had a lot to say about on the previous podcast. I actually predicted that whoever lost this game would be in panic mode. I said that without even looking past who they were playing after that. This was the Eagles-Cowboys game. How fucking scared do Philadelphia Eagle fans need to be right now? They are, while currently only second in the division, they are technically behind the Cowboys and absolutely behind the Redskins. How pants shittingly scared should the Eagles be now that they've lost to the Cowboys and have probably one of the tougher stretches in the NFL to close out the season? Aaron.
Yeah, that rest of the season schedule is looking rough for them right now, and they're not playing or looking like a defending Super Bowl team right now. So that division is all fucked up.
They were supposed to be better with Carson Wentz coming back. I remember a certain podcaster saying that there was a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz to come back and do big things this year, and that Eagles fans were going to start booing him and Santa Claus if shit didn't start going right. Stretch while
it's wild, man. Like that division is just. I mean, well, the Giants are the Giants. They're on the verge of going 1-8. Here in a little bit if they lose to the 49ers, but. So we know it ain't the Giants right now, but I mean the Redskins are playing tough defense minus Josh Norman, and they got Alex Smith on offense, and then I don't really know what to make of the Cowboys, but it seems like these past couple of seasons, no matter what, I don't know if you guys ever watched that big dude on that makes those little videos, that Eagles fan. He's like the Eagles super fan. He made a video screaming last night about how he's like, how can we never beat the Cowboys? He's like, no matter what, we can't never beat the fucking Cowboys. Like, I don't know what it is about that rivalry, but like the Cowboys have had their number a couple of times recently. So, and clearly, they like to use the term at the beginning of the season on paper, but on paper, the Dallas Cowboys should not be beating the Eagles.
No, not at all. Well, I know we've got to kind of go over the Eagles' remaining schedule. I'm going to give y'all 7 games. Predict the Eagles' record. Right now, the Eagles are 4-5. In order to finish at the same record that they had last year, I believe they finished 11-5 last year.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for them to finish with the at least the same record, that's the best they could do is the exact same record. They would have to win out. I don't see it happening. But I'm gonna give y'all their the remaining schedule. Y'all just quick fire. Tell me win or loss. Next week's game for Philly is against the Saints in New Orleans.
That's a loss.
L.
That's a loss.
Right,
Where was that?
All right, so we got a consensus 4-6. And
they could be playing next to the
Big
Rocky
L.
Balboa statue in Philly, and they're going to lose.
play on the steps. The week after that,
playing next to fucking Nick Foles statue.
week 12, they have the Giants in Philly.
That's a win.
John,
Take that.
5-6. Okay, 5-6.
Yeah, they'll take that.
All right, and following week, Redskins in Philly. Monday night.
I'm going to say they win that game.
I think it'll be close. I think I'm going to say they lose by 3.
Okay, so John's got them at what? 5-7, and Aaron has them at 4-6.
6 and 6.
6-6, excuse me. And then the following game at Dallas.
Who the fuck knows? I'm going to give them another L. I think Dallas takes them twice.
So, yeah, y'all both have that.
I don't think Dallas takes them twice. I think they'll win that one.
Okay, so now y'all are at the same, 6 and 7?
Yep.
All right. The next game, Sunday night game at the Rams.
L.
It's interesting because what the Rams have been going through lately, but yeah, I'm gonna be with John on that one.
So 6 and 8. Houston comes to Philly.
Then they'll win that one.
I'm gonna go L, man. I think Houston can take that.
So you got him Aaron's got him 6 and 9. John's got him 7 and 8. Last game of the year at Washington.
I'm gonna give them a win on that one.
I don't think Washington pulls off
Exactly.
I don't think Washington pulls off a second win.
So end of the season.
They'll win that one over Washington.
End of the season, Alex Smith. I'm giving it to the Eagles on that one.
See, you also have to at that point, Washington is
true.
Washington could either be playing to clinch home field or, I mean, at this, depending on what Washington does, that may be a battle for the actual division. So,
but Aaron said it perfectly though. It's Alex Smith being Alex Smith.
Alex Smith's a good regular season quarterback though.
At the end of the year.
So I'm saying 7 and 9, 8 and 8 is what y'all are calling. So
either way, it's
they're missing the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So that's Philly fans are going to be shitty about that one.
That was actually kind of cool, man. We're gonna have to do that more often.
Definitely. Now, right now, we're gonna jump right into the community questions, man. These are questions that we post a graphic in our Sports Wars group, and we ask to get our group to ask us some questions. The first question it actually goes straight from what we were just talking about. One of our longtime members, Mr. Brandon Cowgill, asks, do the Redskins make any noise in the playoffs, or are they just cannon fodder for the big guns? That's not his exact question. I just reworded it. John, what do you think?
How you gonna change the man's fucking question?
I mean, he's a Redskins fan, so I mean, he it's more or less what he was asking.
If they make it, they don't.
So
they don't make it past their first game.
As this team stands right now, they would get a home playoff game. Do you think that they win one, or I guess it kind of depends on who they get in that first round, because if the playoffs started right now, they would be I guess, a coin flip between them and Chicago as far as who would be the 3rd and 4th seed. And they would, if they were the 3rd seed, they would play Minnesota first, and Chicago would play Carolina. So would you Minnesota versus Washington? Who you got?
Fuck.
Yeah,
Minnesota versus Washington. Minnesota.
I mean, but how interesting would that storyline be with Kirk Cousins going back to Washington?
That would be a great game, man, and that would be a great way to start the playoffs, man. I don't know, man. To answer his question directly, it's tough. I am a Redskins supporter, from a distance, being born in Virginia. Shout out to my grandpa, that's his team, but I just I think we've all been burned by Alex Smith a little too many times in those situations for me to fully trust them. I don't have any faith in Josh Norman at this point anymore.
I think the long and short of the question is, do the Redskins have any shot against the teams like the Rams and the Saints?
I don't think so this year. No.
No. Okay.
Hate to say it, but no.
No.
All right. Well, we're going to follow that up with another question from Mr. Brandon. He actually was changing sports on this one. What is the main problem with the Wizards?
That you signed fucking Dwight Howard.
That's we're gonna put it on Dwight Howard's broad ass bitch ass shoulders.
Yeah, and that whack ass fucking statement he made about joining the Wizards.
What was that? Refresh me. I don't remember that one.
The one where he cycled through all the damn teams he went to, and it was like, oh, now I can be a Wizard or some shit like that.
Oh, that lame ass little riddle or puns he was making at the press conference.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Why did you call his shoulders bitch ass?
Because Dwight's just bitch ass.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of bitch ass, dude, Richard Sherman is so trash, dude. He's not even guarding Odell Beckham on every play.
Dude, that's because Odell's probably get about 4 steps on him after every snap. We're talking the dude's coming off major knee surgery, bro. And I don't even like Sherman like that. Aaron, what do you think the main problem is with
I hate to say this, trying to be professional here, but I really don't know anything about the Wizards. I don't ever pay attention to them. It's a team that I know little to nothing about. From what I've heard from Cordarius, our brother that helps us run shit, I from what I've seen him post and talk about, I was under the assumption that the Wizards were having a decent season.
I think the main issue with the Wizards, I think the main issue is complacency, man. Everybody's Beal and Wall, they've gotten comfortable, and they're just nobody's pushing anybody anymore, man. It may be time to blow it up, make some moves. Now to moving on to the next question with everybody's multi-teamed, everybody's favorite fan of multiple teams through multiple sports through multiple cities, depending on where the champions are at. Can the Ravens make a run after the bye week?
It depends on who's their quarterback, man. It just depends. I don't know how serious this Joe Flacco hip thing is, but it could be one of those situations where they put in Lamar Jackson and they tank the rest of I don't know. It could be one of those things where Lamar Jackson comes in and lights it up and has a crazy rookie second half of the season out of nowhere, because they do have a decent defense. It's going to be them or the Steelers, obviously, in that division. So
well, let's do another quick fire, man. We went over the Eagles last 7 games. Let's go over the Ravens. Obviously, they're on bye week this week. We'll just make it quick. Just John, Aaron, just say win or loss. Okay. This one, Cincinnati coming to Baltimore.
Loss.
Ooh. I'll say They'll lose that one.
Okay, so 4-6. Oakland Raiders. Let's go ahead and chalk that up as a W. Sorry, Pat.
God damn.
5-6. I'm not even giving y'all the option to answer that. Just go 5-6 at Atlanta.
Ooh, fuck. Depends on which Falcons show up.
They're losing.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Ravens taking an L on that also.
Okay, so
depends on which Matt Ryan shows up. Matt Ryan or Andy Dalton.
4-7. Now at Kansas City.
Loss.
5-8. Let's see. Tampa in Baltimore.
Win.
Yeah.
6-8 at Los Angeles Chargers.
Loss. Oh, Chargers?
Yes.
Still a loss. I'm taking an L on that too.
I think the Chargers are better than the Rams, so definitely.
Yeah. Phillip Rivers will light it up.
All right, and before you snap judgment on this one, remember they already lost to this team earlier this year. The Cleveland Browns come to Baltimore.
They don't get it a second time. They'll win it.
They'll lose. I think that's going to be Cleveland's fourth game that all of us predicted they'll win 4 games this year.
So you think Baltimore gets their season swept by Cleveland?
Yep.
Nah.
Fuck them.
Fuck.
Nah.
There you go, Cabal. Under 500 for you. Draft picks. Joe Flacco is done.
He gone.
All right. Moving on to the next question. One of our good friends, Mr. Tommy High, asks, what teams do you see making a run in the second half of this season? I think we've established that it's not going to be the fucking Ravens or the Eagles. Who do you think is getting hot at the right time, I guess, right now?
Falcons.
Jesus Christ, man.
Please.
I'm going to go with
the
obvious answer based on on what we've seen this last week. And this is going to kind of go against what I've said earlier this year. Pittsburgh. They fucking destroyed the Panthers on Thursday. Also based on the last win here, I think Tennessee could make a run just because their confidence is high right now. Those Houston Tennessee games to come are going to be very interesting. I think that's about it. I think the teams that are hot are going to continue to have already been hot. Those are 2 teams that have kind of been that were down a little. I mean, Pittsburgh's only got 2 losses, but they're heating up at the right time.
Yeah, I don't know if I could name somebody that's going to, kind of catch fire and take off, but I would say one that's already rolling right now kind of is. I'm just going to go with the Chargers.
All right. And let's see. I'm going to skip over a question here. Thomas Gilkey, our buddy, the Sports Wars little brother.
The champion of baseball right now.
Yes. World Series champion, Boston Red Sox man. What is a team in the NFL this year that has either been really disappointing or really surprising for
you? Well, really disappointing.
I think the only answer to really disappointing has got to be the fucking Jaguars.
John's just going to say Falcons the rest of the show. Every question, the answer is going to be Falcons.
It's got to be the Jaguars, right?
I mean, it's kind of got it for – I understand where John's coming from on this one. For him personally, for you, Roy, personally. I mean, you guys couldn't have foreseen the injuries. I mean, injuries are injuries, and it's not like
killed us.
That's why I'm hesitant to label this season really disappointing, because to me, disappointing is.
But it is disappointing though when you think about it too. It is, and it is. I know where you're coming from, and I know where you're getting at. But that many injuries to that many key players on that team is disappointing as shit, and there ain't no getting around it. There ain't no other word for it but disappointing, sad, tragic, ridiculous, unfortunate, all that shit wrapped up. But for me, real quick, I would say disappointing is, and I'm not trying to take a jab at Pat or anything like that. It's Oakland. I'm disappointed with what Oakland's done. I'm really not, man. I'm thankful for what they've done as far as giving us, Khalil Mack for sure. But before the season started, me, Roy, and Pat did a show, and he asked us what we're going to be like bounce back teams. And I think I picked the Raiders. This was before the Khalil Mack trade and everything, but I said I thought that the Raiders had enough players in key positions to turn around and have another season like they did in 2016, where they made that little playoff run. So I'm pretty disappointed with their season.
I think it's
from what I thought personally. And then my surprising one, whether I called it in an unpopular opinion post or not, is definitely Chicago. And it's not just because it's a homer pick, but
I mean, it's the right pick.
So right now, as of Sunday, as of yesterday, they're one more game ahead of what they finished their season off last year. Last year they had 5 wins. We're already at 6 now. Yep. Mitch Trubisky just beat his a divisional rival or a divisional opponent for the first time in his career, beating the Lions yesterday. The defense clicking on all cylinders. It's a surprise. It's a shock. It's wonderful. It's heart-wrenching. I want to cry every day thinking about it. Tears of joy.
Oh, I actually have a side question I want to ask.
That's my disappointment and surprise.
I actually have a side question I want to ask about the game that's just happened. It's going on right now. If your team is 1-7, does your ass need to be dancing in the end zone after beating a team that's like having a shittier year than you?
No.
Just tell me it wasn't Saquon.
But that's Odell Beckham though.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
Beckham just scored a touchdown and danced like he just scored the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. Now going on to our next question, Mr. Cole Weinstein. I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I'm sorry. Just correct me when you listen to the podcast.
The Syracuse guy.
Yeah, Mr. Syracuse. I think he's also a Charger fan. Which is that's kind of a weird pairing, Syracuse and
well, he went to Syracuse, I believe. That's his alma mater. So, yeah.
His question I know we could probably spend a good portion of the show talking about this, but I'm trying to limit it to 2 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC. Who are your pretenders and contenders in the NFL this year? Give me one pretender NFC, one pretender AFC, one contender AFC, one contender NFC.
Go ahead, John. I got to do some looking up here.
Kind of put me on the damn spot here.
I will go since we're not fucking prepared.
Yeah.
Pretenders. I think the more that we dive into the schedule and the more we dive into the stats, I got to think the Rams they're looking more and more like pretenders. Contenders, it fucking kills me to say those Mardi Gras fuckers in New Orleans. But Drew Brees is balling out. They rightfully should have probably gone to the Super Bowl last year if it wasn't for that heartbreaking against the Minnesota Vikings. So they're the contenders. The Saints, pretenders of the Rams. Contenders in the AFC, man. I'm gonna stick with KC until further notice, man. They're still balling out. I know their one loss is against New England, but it was a 3-point loss on the road. I'm still not 100% sold on that. And I know I mentioned Pittsburgh is getting hot, but I still think they're pretenders, man. They just their wins this year to me have not been. 6-2-1 with the tie against the Browns. Their wins are against Tampa. The wins are against Tampa, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, and of course they just blew out Carolina. So Carolina's the one really quality win in that bunch, and I am shitting on my own Falcons because by then we were knee deep in fucking Red Cross donations at that point. But they still have games against the Jaguars, who I know are a dumpster fire right now, but it's in Jacksonville. They still have the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Saints to go. So they very well could they could finish the season 9-6. 9-6-1. So I think the Pittsburgh is definitely pretenders. Is who's ready at this point?
I'm ready, man.
All right, go with Aaron. What was your pretenders and your contenders?
AFC pretender. I'm taking Baltimore. That number one defense in the league they had for like fucking 2 straight weeks or something like that. Yeah, they got shit on by the Browns.
Taking a lot of shots at Pat right now because Pat was kind of touting that defense a couple weeks back.
Yeah, well, they lost to the Cleveland Browns, so that defense is I don't know. To me, that's not the number one defense in the league, but that's none of my business. AFC contender. It's an easy answer and it's a cop out, but I'm going with it, and it's the Patriots. How do you not? Again, until further notice, the AFC belongs to New England. NFC, I'm going to start with my contender in the NFC, and it's another kind of cop out right now, but I picked New Orleans at the beginning of the year to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. It's kind of hard to go against that now, especially with their record and the way they've been playing. Kind of lights out. Drew Brees, in my opinion, is having the MVP season over Mahomes right now. I don't really care what you think. So my pretender for the NFC is the fucking Green Bay Packers. And I don't think I need to say any more about them.
My boy just like shitting on the he loves shitting on Packers.
Are they not? Are they not pretenders though?
I don't even know that I put them as high as a pretender because I mean,
but in the public opinion, the narrative of the Green Bay Packers is that no matter what, they've got Rodgers, so they'll be a shoe-in for the playoffs.
They got a chance.
They'll win the North because they've got Aaron Rodgers. But look at you.
It would be so great if the Packers finished third in that division.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna start with the AFC. I think the contenders, outside of the obvious, the obvious answer would be New England, but outside of them, I think KC is the real deal. Mahomes is having a hell of a year. He is, if not first, second in regards to the MVP race as of right now. I think Jags are the pretenders. Ramsey talked entirely too much shit at the beginning of the year for them to be doing what they're doing. It's outrageous. As far
Watch
as
your
the
mouth
contenders,
when you got Bortles as a quarterback.
I mean,
yeah, if Bortles is
yeah, exactly. You can't shit on any other quarterbacks if you have Blake Bortles as yours. As much as I hate to say it for the NFC, man, the Saints, I mean, Jesus. They're putting up big numbers against teams, and they have no indication that now. So it is easy. As far as in the NFC, the NFC. I mean, let me see here. I gotta go with the Eagles, man. Coming into this year, you wouldn't think that they're be what they are now.
Solid pick, man.
Yeah, they had high expectations coming into the year, and they've shit on that. So that's mine.
All right, good picks, man. Good picks. I wanted to jump into the next question. One of our longtime members, and just giving him a shout out, Michigan fan, Mr. Wesley Campbell asks, who and what is next for the Cleveland Browns? Specifically, who do you think are their coaching candidates? And also, do you think that whoever they bring in, are they going to blow it up, or are they going to try to build on what they have?
Shit. It's hard to say with the coach thing, man, because I know that there was some talk about what's his name? Oh, Lincoln Riley. But now I'm hearing that Lincoln Riley's going to be maybe taking the Cowboys spot.
Yeah, I hear that he is.
Which I don't get that, man. I mean, Lincoln Riley's had some success in Oklahoma, sure, but he has less than zero NFL experience. So,
Well, I think the reason Lincoln Riley is being linked to Cleveland is because of Baker Mayfield.
right? Yeah, no, that I mean, I know, but
it's the same reason that when Harbaugh was let go from the 49ers, that his name was brought up with the Colts, him and Andrew Luck, obviously.
So that's funny that you say that, though, because so where I would go to answer this question to Wes is obviously you got to build on what you have right now because it's proven that they've got the talent to get by and win a couple of games. They're obviously not going to, be really over 500 possibly this year. So you're just going to have a couple of solid picks in this upcoming draft. If it's true what they say about Harbaugh leaving Baltimore, man, why not look at him?
Yeah.
He's got a Super Bowl ring on his back.
And it would definitely make that Cleveland Baltimore rivalry even more interesting. I got to think that would be a good solid pickup. Another name that I keep hearing brought up is former Arizona head coach Bruce Arians. He has actually come out and I don't want to say openly campaigned, but he has actually said that the Browns job is the only one he would come out of retirement for. And I do also agree with you that at this point, I actually think that to give Hugh Jackson some credit, I think there's too much talent there to have to completely blow it up. I think you can build on what you have. Obviously, you make some tweaks and add some things and kind of maximize what Baker does. I mean, you got a running back, you got a wide receiver you just paid, you got the quarterbacks, the foundation's there on offense. What do you think, John?
When do you think they make these moves, though? Do you think they wait till the season ends?
Yeah, they're not going to hire anybody until after. Greg Williams is there.
You let these guys do their thing?
I'm sorry?
You let these guys do their thing? Because they seem to be doing all right with these guys that are like the interim coaches right now.
Greg Williams has been a head coach before. He was a head coach in Buffalo back in 2002 and 2003. Greg Williams is also kind of infamous because he was the defensive coordinator for the Saints during Bountygate. He was the defensive coordinator that was suspended for indefinitely, but it ended up being a year. He was the one responsible for putting bounties on players' heads to be injured. So I don't know that the Browns are going to turn that job over to him. Although if he keeps winning, if he finishes the season 500 or better with these last few games, I got to imagine they'll at least give him an interview for it.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with y'all that there's no way that they blow it up completely. And I just think if they hire the right coach, this team could definitely pick things up. I think Cincinnati's on its way down. Pittsburgh doesn't seem to have a replacement ready for Roethlisberger if he was to up and say fuck it and quit tomorrow. Obviously, Pittsburgh's going to be losing some firepower with Bell leaving, so it's kind of hard to see at this point. These last two questions I kind of saved towards the I actually think one of the questions that I'm actually going to save and use that as a topic in the group. This last one I say because I know that Aaron kind of went off in the actual when the question was asked, so I kind of wanted to get his full response for this one. Xavier Patterson asks, "Who is the better actual football coach, Nick Saban or Jim Harbaugh?" I'm gonna go ahead.
Directed to Aaron only.
No, this was this is a question that I actually read the response, and Aaron kind of he kind of obviously Aaron being a Bama fan is favorite Saban. I don't think you have to be a Bama fan to actually favor Saban here.
That's why I was wondering. Like, was this was a legit question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Better actual football coach.
This was for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
So who wants to answer it? Because
in the argument, it was conceded that Saban is absolutely a better recruiter, but is Harbaugh apparently? I for some reason, we're just going to break down the question. Fuck Saban versus Harbaugh. Apparently, Saban has to. He gets penalized because his recruiting is so good that he gets superior players, and Harbaugh's getting a bump because he doesn't recruit as well. So, which I don't understand, because what's how many national? If Harbaugh had one national championship with lesser players, I could, okay, sure. So let's make that argument. But Harbaugh isn't a better coach than Urban Meyer. How's he better than Saban?
So who are the big names? Who are the big name recruits coming to Alabama in 2005 and 6 and 7? Can anybody name any of those guys anymore? I mean,
you're talking about 13 years ago, bro.
Right, exactly. Nobody's.
I don't remember big name recruits from like 2 years ago.
So yeah, of course, Nick Saban is the absolute better recruiter. Here's why: he won a national championship within his first 3 years at Alabama. And then he won another one, and it just goes on and on and on. Who wouldn't want to come play for Alabama? Once you establish that national championship and started having those dominating seasons where they were either going undefeated or losing one game, don't you think that it makes it a little bit easier to start recruiting better players and better talent after the fact? But they weren't coming there before Nick Saban.
Use Kirby Smart as an example. 2 years ago, there's no mistake that Georgia had its best recruiting class in probably fucking forever. The year after Smart took the team to the national championship with guys that weren't his players. Winning football makes recruiting easier. That's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's not fucking rocket science. There is a correlation. So the fact, Saban's a better recruiter, which makes him a better coach. What the fuck? Like, that, to me, that's a nonsense argument. Harbaugh, it's impossible for Harbaugh to be a better coach than Saban when he's not a better coach than probably fucking Dabo or Urban. So, this is the same argument.
I fucking hate Urban Meyer, and I agree with that statement.
Let's not act like
I fucking hate Urban.
Let's not act like Nick Saban didn't win a national championship at LSU.
Yeah, to me, this is the same argument as like, Aaron Rodgers is the GOAT. How the fuck is he? How is he the GOAT when he's not better than Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, or Joe Montana? So
now, okay, erase the college record. Who is the better NFL?
It's so stupid. Of course, it's Harbaugh. He's got a better record in the NFL, sure. But what did he really do in the NFL?
Maybe that's what he won. Maybe that's what he meant.
That's what I'm saying. They have the same Super Bowl. They have the same amount of Super Bowl wins.
Right. I know.
Maybe that's what he meant.
Is everything about rings? No, he meant college, and he said that Harbaugh is a better X's and O's coach.
We could dedicate a whole podcast to what if scenarios, because the scenario that's going to continue to play out is Nick Saban wanted Drew Brees. The Miami Dolphins medical staff would not clear Drew Brees, and so they signed Dante Culpepper as a fucking consolation prize, and it went to shit. And that's why Saban quit Miami, because he didn't have the same power as a head coach in the NFL as he does as a head coach of Alabama. It's that simple. So Saban versus Harbaugh, Saban is absolutely better than Harbaugh in every aspect of the game. Harbaugh needs to work up to get better than Jimbo Fisher and Dabo Swinney at this point.
Can you name another college coach better than Nick Saban?
No.
Now or ever?
No.
Because he's if I'm not mistaken, he's tied with Bear Bryant, right? Or he's got one more to go.
Let's see. I can actually double check.
Is it five? Is it 5 or 6 that Bear has?
Let's see.
I guess I should probably know that off the top of my head, but I think with his record and
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the Bama fan.
yeah. Well, apparently I'm.
Well, it depends on.
I'm a bandwagon fan, so you have to cut me some slack.
All right, most NCAA
Didn't contribute to the school.
Most NCAA. Bear Bryant has 6, and Nick Saban also has 6.
Well, he's got 6. Nick Saban has 6 altogether. Including he's got 5 at Bama and 1 at LSU.
Yeah, he has 6. They are tied.
Right. So
whereas Bear Bryant's all of his were at Alabama, so Nick Saban has a chance to undisputably number 1 this year.
Yeah.
There is no other coach like in the modern era that is close. Like I'm going down this list. Urban Meyer is the closest, and he has 3.
It's because he recruits better.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit. I wonder why they want to go to Alabama. I wonder why.
Meanwhile, Jim Harbaugh has could someone tell me how many conference titles Jim Harbaugh has? Okay. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next segment. We're we ease our way right into college football. We're doing our weekly college football show there for a minute. Life kind of got in the way of everybody, and we had to kind of put it on pause for now. But we're going to touch on our this week's college football playoff picture. They were released. They gave the top 4 and then the next 2 out. The top 4 haven't changed much. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, and then the next 2, Georgia and Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on this top 6 as of right now? Obviously, it's going to change. We know it's going to change a little bit simply because Georgia and Alabama play each other. So we still there's 2 games left in the season in the regular season for Alabama and Georgia. I know Georgia plays UMass and Georgia Tech. Alabama, I think, plays the Citadel, and then they play Auburn. Clemson, I think, plays BC coming up. Clemson played BC last weekend. Notre Dame has BC coming up. And then, so I mean, there's still some maneuvering that's left to be done. I think the team in the best position is probably Notre Dame because they don't have to deal with a conference championship. Michigan still has Ohio State and looks like possibly Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. Whoopee. Is this top 4 locked in? Do you see any movement here? Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan. John.
I hate the fact that Notre Dame's even in this conversation every damn year.
They're undefeated, man.
I don't give a shit. Who do they play? Like you said, they don't have to deal with a conference championship.
They've actually had to hear everybody tell it.
Games.
To hear everybody tell it, Georgia's the one that hasn't played anybody this year, despite us beating a ranked Florida and a ranked Kentucky and a ranked
Auburn was ranked.
Auburn, yeah. The schedule this year for Notre Dame, currently ranked teams. They did beat Michigan.
You have to look at what they were ranked when they actually played them.
Wait, are you talking about the Harbaugh coach Michigan team?
Yeah, Harbaugh, Michigan. That's looking at their schedule. That is the only ranked team that Notre Dame has beaten this year. They play Syracuse on Saturday.
Yeah, see, come on, get the fuck out of here.
They played number 13 Syracuse on Saturday.
You want to know something?
That's like the whole UCF bullshit.
You want to know something even better than that Notre Dame schedule? Clemson's. Clemson has the fucking easiest path to the playoffs in all of college football.
I mean,
Look at their schedule. Look at the schedule that they've played this year and tell me it's not the easiest schedule in the nation.
So we also get, like I said, we got people shitting on Georgia's schedule, but Georgia played number 15, Florida, number 24, Auburn.
How many SEC teams does Georgia play each year?
Enough.
How many SEC games does Georgia play each year? And you tell me how many of those teams that are currently in the fucking rankings could beat those teams?
This is why I love doing the show.
A top 10 ranked Kentucky team.
Because we can sit here and ride the SEC wave all night.
You damn straight. The SEC is the closest thing to professional fucking football than any conference in college, period.
All right, Clemson, their toughest game of the year thus far.
And Wake Forest?
No. Well, they've actually played
Florida State.
They've played more ranked opponents than Notre Dame, more currently ranked opponents. They've played 3 currently ranked opponents. They played Syracuse. They beat Syracuse 27-23.
So they barely beat Syracuse.
If
I'm not mistaken, they struggled in that fucking game.
They played number 14, NC State. NC State that just lost an embarrassing one to Wake Forest this past week. They beat NC State 41-7. And then they just played number 17, Boston College, and beat them 27-7. Their remaining schedule is Duke and South Carolina. And then they also play the ACC champion, or they're playing the ACC championship game. And I'm actually looking up who the fuck that would be, because I have no clue who the other ACC champion is. All right, Clemson is the top 1. And as it stands right now, they would play Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
But that's still undetermined. Pittsburgh still has conference games left. It could be Virginia. Pittsburgh still plays Wake Forest and Miami. So Pittsburgh still has 2 conference games that they could easily lose. And then it would fall to Big Bad Virginia. So, and Clemson, I mean, yeah, they've got a cakewalk to finish out the year. And then Alabama's got the Citadel and Auburn. And then obviously Georgia. Notre Dame has got the game against BC. And Michigan may, outside of trust me, I do think Georgia has the toughest road just because we have the number 1 team on the schedule. Michigan may be one of the tougher ones because they still have Ohio State, and then they also have the conference championship game, which is like I said, it's likely going to be Northwest. I think Northwestern actually clinched it. So obviously the SEC champion, no matter what, gets in. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No matter what, the SEC champion is absolutely going to be in, whether it is Georgia or Alabama. I think the better question to me is if Clemson, Notre Dame, and Michigan all went out, but Georgia beats Alabama, does Alabama fall out of the top 4, or does Alabama drop to only 4, which means Michigan, their only loss could be to Notre Dame, and they get bumped out?
It's wild, man. In my opinion, realistically, what I think is going to happen is if, there's a very likely possibility that Michigan could lose that game to Ohio State.
Oh no, I do too.
And I think if Michigan loses to Ohio State, even if Alabama beats Georgia, I think Georgia moves into that number 4 spot and makes the playoffs.
So hold on. So you're saying if Ohio State loses or
if
Michigan,
Ohio State, beats Michigan, because that'll be what, 2 losses for Michigan?
yeah, their losses will be against Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think that bumps them out of the 4th spot in the country.
And you think Georgia would be in regardless, win or loss?
Yeah.
Well, I think that depends on because Oklahoma still has to play West Virginia. West Virginia is actually
you're right.
Sneaky.
Yeah,
I don't see a 2-loss Georgia team getting in it.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm rooting for chaos. I absolutely want. I love nothing more than pissing off Big Ten fans. So I would love for obviously Georgia to beat Alabama. I would also love Georgia to beat Alabama and not be much. I would love for it to be like 3 points, like 2 points.
So that would be the only way then maybe that they both get in, which would be Georgia beating Alabama, which ain't fixing to happen. And then Michigan losing to Ohio State, which would possibly do what? Move Alabama into the number 3 spot and Georgia into the number 4 spot?
Well, no, I think if Georgia wins, Georgia probably goes to 3 and Alabama goes to 4.
Okay.
Which would be if it holds, then we get Georgia Notre Dame and then Alabama Clemson first round. Georgia played Notre Dame last year, and we played Notre Dame last year like first game of the year. So yeah, I'm rooting for chaos. I love it. So we'll try to make this a regular feature if we can get these 2 knuckleheads back on next week. We'll talk about the updated rankings depending on if there's any shakeups in it. So we're gonna jump straight into the last segment of the podcast tonight. We're gonna just touch on next week's games, just really quick, kind of glossing over them. The really intriguing one next week for me, I know that we got some pretty big matchups, but the one that kind of flew under the radar because it's 2 unlikely division leaders, the Texans versus the Redskins. Who do you got in this one, Aaron?
Texans.
Nice. John?
I think I picked it earlier. I want to say I picked the Redskins. What Redskins to win that one?
I'm going to go Texans as well. I think that Deshaun Watson's magical, man. I love him. Next game, like I said, we're just going to dive straight into these. Next game, Ravens and Bengals. The only reason I picked this one is because I think whoever loses this one, it's done. I know we touched on the Ravens rest of the schedule this year. I don't remember which. I think y'all both picked. I think one picked the Ravens to win this one. One picked.
I picked Cincinnati to win it.
All right.
Is AJ Green playing?
Rumor is no.
Oof.
But we
that's
also
crazy because we don't know if Flacco's playing.
I don't know if Flacco's playing either. So this could be Lamar Jackson's first start.
Then I'll take the Ravens in that one.
All right. I think is fucking Vontaze Burfict playing? Like that would be my worry. If Vontaze Burfict is playing, I'm not starting Lamar Jackson. I don't give a fuck. RJ3 can limp his ass out there. I think I'm gonna go with I'll go with the Ravens too, just because if AJ Green's not playing, well, no, fuck that. I'm going with the Bengals. The AJ Green's been kind of hurt lately, and the Bengals have still kind of found a way. This team, Ravens can't put up enough points to hang with them. Going to the next one. This is also another one that we touched on, but I think this is going to be quick. I'm not even going to dive into it more than we have to. Eagles versus Saints. Who you got?
Who dat nation?
Saints.
Same here. Three for the Saints. All right, this one is going to be it's going to be tough for maybe one of our members here. It's next week's Sunday night game. The Bears and the Vikings. I already
Vikings
know.
Are winning that shit.
So what?
What'd you say, bitch?
I said the Vikings are winning that shit.
Ball cap aside, who you got in this one, Aaron?
I have to pick the Bears. Whether I truly believe it or not, I have to.
Same
I just
thing.
have to.
Same thing. Same thing with me and the Falcons.
It's the biggest game of the season, though. It's the biggest game of the season for the Bears.
I'm going to go with you, man. I'm picking the Bears. I think Kirk Cousins is going to raise and brand up and be the vanilla ice cream of quarterbacks again and just fuck this one up. Now, the next one is a possible – through the first 2 months of the season, this is what everybody kind of predicted could be a Super Bowl preview. Chiefs versus Rams. This one, I believe, is in Mexico City. The side note to this, the Rams have actually had to move their practice to Denver for multiple reasons. One of them being the wildfires in California. The air quality outside in Los Angeles right now is very poor. So they moved the practices to Denver because it mimics the elevation of Mexico City. So this one is going to be in Mexico City on Monday night. Who you got? Chiefs, Rams, Cooper Kupp's done for the year. What are we going with this? John.
Did they ever fix that field? Did they ever fix that field? Because the concert they had destroyed that field.
Yeah, they'll likely get that shit together. The NFL's not going to let them take the field on some bullshit. They're going to get that out there. They'll get that taken care of.
I got to go with the Chiefs, man. The Chiefs are going to win that game.
I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs as well.
I think I'm going to go with Chiefs too. So there you go. Those are our teams' picks for this week. That is going to be the show. But as always, we do like to end the show with our own little personal shout outs. Aaron, who are your shout outs for this week?
Just the two of you guys, man. It's nice to do this with you again, man. I miss doing that college football, thing that we did. Well, we did it together once, but
yeah, man, life got in the way. You bought a house. I had a kid. I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, we
John's still being a bitch. So it's all
John's still being a bitch.
But no, shout out to you guys, man, and continual shout out to the people that pressed the Facebook laugh react when I posted that the Bears would win the NFC North. I still have the screenshot. I still have each of your names.
Aaron got
I'm waiting.
You got a little mini shitty shout out. I like it. John, who
I love keeping receipts on bitches.
who you shout
just
out
man, the group in general, man. Everybody that keeps everything going and makes it fun to keep doing what we're doing. And shout out to the new Instagram people we got here. Me and Aaron are trying to take that shit over. Help us get up at our goal of 800 followers by the end of the year. We're at like 510 right now or something.
Follow that shit. Follow the Instagram page. A lot of work goes into the graphics. A lot of work goes into starting conversations with you fuckers. Join the group. Join the Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. John's big on the Twitter. He likes starting shit. He once tagged Joe Montana in an article that was on the website just to try to stir up a reaction. And I will, as always, have my shitty shout-outs this week. I've got a couple, but they're both based in that fucking freezing-ass state to the north. I would like to give a shitty shout-out to the Minnesota Timberwolves for botching the fuck out of this trade with Jimmy Butler. Yes, they got a couple quality players, but they didn't get anywhere near the King's ransom that they could have got for him. Teams were basically throwing money at him. Was this deal really the best deal they could have got? And I actually have a very special shitty shout out to someone who gave his own shitty shout out this week after being traded. Jimmy Butler gave his own shitty shout outs to former teammates. Once the trade was announced at practice, he kind of shaking everybody's hand, dapping everybody up, And his parting words to Andrew Wiggins were to cut those fucking braids, you ugly fuck. And his last words to Karl Anthony Towns, the star center of the Minnesota Timberwolves, were he was the only 7-foot bitch he ever met. And he also added that Karl Anthony Towns was the Dominican Kwame Brown. So that is how you shut shit down. That is how you shut shit down when you leave a job.
That is my boy.
That is the equivalent of slapping the fucking boxes of fries off the counter as you quit your McDonald's job. That is how you do a shitty shout out. Shout out to Jimmy Butler, Mr. Jimmy Buckets, for shouting it out the same way I would have. Thank everybody for listening. Again, Geeks and Gamers Network podcast. We got multiple podcasts across multiple networks. Follow the main group. Follow the sports group. We are here. We love to talk shit. Patreon, please donate to that. Like I said, we're doing big things right now. Instagram, Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. Fuck Tom Brady. Fuck Odell.